Hey everybody, Kurt Nelson here. Welcome back to my YouTube channel. This video is going to be directed towards young hitters and how we develop them. Generic, I think, but at the same time, it's so important to remind everybody it's got to be fun. You know, hitting a baseball is fun, so we want to make sure we're continuing to promote that environment of having fun. I think that the younger we're talking in terms of hitters, the simpler we have to be. It's got to be simple. It can't be confusing. You know, we want to take basic mechanics and really maybe some basic drills that these hitters can do that are going to promote good moving pieces moving forward. I also think there's a lot of things that get taught at the young age levels that are just kind of generically taught, you know, T-ball and coach pitch and Little League, even into some of the younger age levels in youth baseball and select ball, that actually hurt us a lot. So we want to go over some of those things. But more important than anything, when you're dealing with a young hitter, you know, promoting that hitter to be aggressive. Like, more important than any mechanic is teaching them to be aggressive. We learn how to hit by hitting. You know, we don't learn how to hit by not swinging. You know, I've said it for years. A couple people that I've talked to over the years, they say the same thing, is that if we're dealing with young hitters, you know, anywhere from the ages of 5, you know, to 13, I wish I could tell them they're not allowed to walk. You know, now granted, understanding the strike zone is valuable, and learning that over time is a very important trait to becoming a great hitter. But at the same time, right now, we want to promote swinging the bat and swinging the bat hard. Now, granted, there is different ways to get to that point, and we'll kind of go over those a little bit. But more important than any mechanic, I believe, is that mentality of being aggressive, being ready to hit, being wanting to hit, expecting to hit. It goes so much further than any particular mechanic. But we will get into the mechanics right now. So, generically taught, you know, let's talk about some things that are just kind of generically taught at the younger age levels. Is I think generically you're going to get, you know, the line up your knocker knuckles, you're going to get take your weight back, you're going to get take your weight back, take your hands back, you know, you're going to get spin the hips. You're going to hear a lot of different things, you know, with these younger coaches, maybe dad coaches and whatnot, Little League, whatever, that are teaching things that I don't believe in. I think that, honestly, I think that a lot of things that young hitters are doing when they first start swinging a bat, and when you just tell them to swing the bat aggressive and hard, they start to kind of show up these natural characteristics among, you know, good swings as well. So sometimes we actually take good moving pieces out of hitters on some of those mechanical things. So, you know, first off, it's kind of like the load and stride. I think if you want to start simple, we'll start with just kind of with the load and stride. You know, we'll talk about the setup and the stance first, but we want to keep this pretty simple and easy to understand a little bit. So let's start with the setup. You know, what is generically taught in athletic sports? You know, everyone always says, you know, like you're guarding somebody in basketball, right? Like, be athletic. And I think in the sport of basketball and some of these other sports where being athletic has a lot to do with being on the balls of your feet, right? Get athletic, be on the balls of your feet. Well, it's actually a misconception in hitting. Hitting is done a lot more flat-footed. Hitting is done so much less on our toes and a lot more on the center of our feet. So I think for me, one of the biggest things to teach a hitter is in relationship is what we call top-down. It's really the human body in balance, and it starts with the head, right? We want the head to be in the center. Our bodies are built to where our shoulders are on top of our hips, our head is over our butt, and our spine is in between our feet, right? So when I'm talking about getting into an athletic setup, that's what we're talking about, is we're trying to find our center of gravity. And it also means that I'm not on my toes. It means that I'm in the center of my feet. So if I can get myself in a good center of gravity, when I actually turn my head like I'm going to hit, you'll kind of see like the cheek and the ear bone right there. You know, it's going to kind of lead into that spine a little bit. So we have awareness of kind of where that spine is and where that upper body is in relationship to my lower body and my center of gravity, right? So get athletic does not necessarily mean get athletic by getting on the balls of your feet and leaning forward. You can just kind of see it in terms of when I turn sideways like I'm going to hit, is that if I get on the balls of my feet, you can see immediately my body's job is to catch balance. My body's job is to regain balance. Actually, my brain's number one job is to not fall over, right? So in terms of hitting and moving on the side to side, you know, the lateral movements, is that now I want to be able to maintain a clean move out. You know, you see a lot of the younger guys, what do? They do one of two things, is they're either going to kind of dive in and lose that balance towards the plate, or they do the other one where they kind of leak away from the plate. You know, sometimes that's a little bit more of fear than anything else with the younger guys, especially when you start first seeing real live overhand pitches. And that's stuff that you'll overcome over time, and obviously it's a must that you do, because if you're afraid of the ball at the next level, you know, hitting's already hard enough as it is, right? But in terms of the setup, let's find our center of gravity, let's find the center of our feet, not on our toes, and we'll see if we can move better from there just by naturally, right? And I think we will, because that's actually our body more in balance, right? Like, to me, this is our capability of balancing. This is not the body imbalance. Like, when we're talking about the body imbalance, we're talking about the actual structure of our body being in balance the way it's designed to be. And it's just going to promote better vision. It's going to promote better use of the ground. It's going to promote a lot of different pieces to just naturally work better, right? So second thing that I think is really overtaught at the youth levels is, you know, take your weight back, take your hands back. I think that loading, a lot of people use the terms loading, and granted, sure, the hands are going to make a move to a hitting position. Obviously, it kind of depends on where your hands start. You know, with the young guys, I like to try and keep things simple, but simple is not the same for everybody. Somebody might feel simple from here to here, and other guys might be more here and you know, stay there in realm. And one looks more simple, but at the end of the day, that other one might be right for that guy, right? So we always talk about being an individual and figuring out what works, right? If you can consistently start your hands above your head and have all this movement and consistently be on time and smash, who says that's wrong for that hitter, right? And then eventually, if the game starts to get faster and they start struggling with it, then we're going to have to simplify that a little bit more. But I think we start off on the simple side of things, and we can kind of expand from there to a certain degree. You know, but ultimately, I think that the concept of taking your weight back and taking your hands back really starts to create this movement pattern in a lot of hitters that already is putting them in a position of counterbalance. It's putting them in a position to see worse, to make worse decisions, to have worse timing. You know, so ultimately, I think that when we're trying to work from setup into a load and stride, and obviously there's a whole bunch of different strides out there, and we'll get into that. You know, but in terms of just this misinformation that gets taught at the youngest age levels, is hitters are so much better off at that age level standing with their feet together and just going forward and then hitting from there, opposed to starting all widened out and shifting back. You know, and granted, you go look at all the major league hitters out there, and you're going to see guys that make a move backwards. You're going to see guys that move a little bit differently than what we're talking about. Does that mean that that's the teach? By all means, no. Those guys are some of the best in the world, but that are also some of the best athletes in the world. And the thing is about great athletes is they're really good compensators as well. So just because they move in a certain way, does that mean that that's the teach? No, it doesn't. Now, do I take that away from somebody that's moving in a way that maybe I disagree with a little bit? And I think he could potentially be better moving in a different way. If he's proven it at the highest level, I'm not going to change that guy. So that's the thing is, if the game's like, hey, this guy's doing really well, having a lot of success at this level, do I make that change? Now with the young guys, you know, we know that they're not at the highest level yet, so over the time, they might have to adapt and change, and how willing they are to do that, you know, is going to dictate, you know, how well they're able to have success at that next level. But let's really start getting rid of the mindset of going backwards and loading our hands back, because ultimately we want to maintain that natural balance, right? So, and it also plays right into timing. Is that timing mechanism to me is the move we make to the ground, and that has so much to do with my vision, what I'm going to swing at, how well I see the ball, my adjustability on breaking balls and other things, you know, that you see as pitching gets better. You know, so ultimately the idea and the concept of take your weight back and take your hands back, you know, the generic, hey, load your weight back, take your hands back, it really puts us in a position of imbalance, and it really causes a lot of issues, and that's a really tough thing to break for hitters at the next level, right? So I think that, you know, I'm going to give you a couple drills here that we can kind of apply to this after this video, but ultimately we're really trying to understand the sequence from setup to the ground to hit, like what the moving pieces are from my actual setup position in the box to my actual hitting position, right? When I talk about sequence, we're talking about the pieces leading up to our hitting position, right? It's kind of our moving pieces, our flow to the ground, you know, our move to see. There's a couple comments that I'm going to get into in the next video that really apply to this that I think are very, very simple concepts that a lot of hitters can benefit from hearing. And ultimately, you know, I think it's gonna change that learning curve at the next level. If I can get some hitters to understand at a very young age that all I need to do is I need to make an athletic move to the ground and let my hands naturally get to a good hitting position during that process, it's gonna benefit us for years to come on the offensive side of things. So, but just remember, everyone's an individual, everyone's different. How they go about doing that is gonna be completely different per individual, correct?